Okay, so here it is. This is the TSC 12 by Elta Music, and this is taken straight from their Solar 42F Ambient Drone Machine. Now, we've done a video on that already. There'll be a link to that somewhere up here or down there or something. Go check that out another time. What they've done is taken it from that synth and they've put it here into Eurorack land. This is 44 HP, so yeah, it's a good chunk, but it offers you a great deal. Not only does it give you these wonderful little touch plates here, of which there are 12, hence the name, but it also allows you to do things like arpeggiation, it allows you to do sequencing, and it allows you to even extrapolate kind of really interesting modulation from it, like vibrato, and there's also the ability to get touch sensitivity modulation out of each one of these as well. So it does a ton of stuff. It's got a very simple interface, but actually when we delve into it, you'll actually see it's capable of so much more. So in terms of the interface, we've got an input here for an external clock, or it can run on its internal clock. As soon as you put an external clock into it, it will automatically see that. I really like that. You don't have to go into a menu and just say, huh, listen to the external clock. It will listen to it straight away. We've then got a volt per octave output. That's my blue cable here, going to the volt per octave input on the Atlantis, essentially allows us to play notes. And then we've got the gate trigger here, which is going into the gate on my Atlantis. And the rest is history. Now we also have some others over here. We've got another gate output that we can utilize. We have got the expression output. This is the pressure output that you can get from this. So we'll send that to a few different places and see what we can do with that. And then we've got a reset input as well, which is used for the arpeggiator and things like that. We've got these two octave controls here. And they give us 3 octaves either side. Really nice. And then we've got this rotary controller here, which allows us to get to all the fun stuff inside of there. Now, yes, there are a few different things to choose from here, but believe me, this becomes muscle memory and very, very simple to use over time. This can be used in single mode, which we're in currently, or it can actually be used in a number of different modes where you get twin mode. So essentially you get this side and then you get this side, but using the same parameters. And then we've got split, which allows us to split this essentially in half and have different parameters for each one. So we could actually have a sequencer running on this side and a keyboard on this side, or an arpeggiator on this side and a keyboard on that side, or any combination of. So it offers you a lot of cool stuff. And the pressure output actually doubles up as another CV volt per octave output when it goes into, if you want it running in a split mode like that. So we'll delve into all of that. Let's leave it on single mode for now. So it is just, the whole thing is used as one controller. So we'll leave it in keyboard mode for now, and this uses it then as one big kind of keyboard essentially. And you're probably wondering, well, how is it choosing all these different notes? Well, you can actually choose what notes are on each one of these. It's really easy to do. So if we just go over to here, you can press the button, and then whichever plate you touch, so this one, plate 9, it's a D1, we can change that. And then, so essentially you can build up your own scales within here, and then you can save those. Or if you like to, you can go over here and you can actually load your own scales. So we've got semitones, we've got Ionian, Dorian, you know, the usual blues plus and blues minus, Japanese, gamelan, yeah, you name it. Let's put gamelan, why not? Cool. And in fact, if you want to turn off that quantization, if you like to do micro tuning, you can actually turn that off. So if we go into edit scale, turn all of these off, like so, that means we can now go back here, and when we go into tuning each one of these, we now get a continuous value. So if you want to do your micro tuning kind of stuff, or a combination of the micro tuning and quantized pitches on here, you can do that as well. I think for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to load a scale. I'm just going to go back to gamelan. Yeah, why not? Just to keep things in tune. There we go. Let's see what else we can do in the keyboard mode. So let's go through some of the options in here. So first of all, we've got the option to do gate output or trigger output. Now, obviously with the gate output, you get the advantage of the sustain portion. So I'll leave that on for now, but you've got the option there. We've got portamento. So let's whack that all the way up. And it goes on for a long time. And you can actually go over those full 6 octaves available to you. Anyway, let's put it on something a little bit more sensible. Let's go back up the octaves. Something like that. And then what I might do, in fact, is go into legato, which means that it'll only use the portamento when there's 2 or more of these being pressed at any one time. Which is really cool. So already it actually becomes quite performative. I'll turn off the portamento for now. And here we'll go in and we'll look at vibrato. So it will actually add vibrato to the volt per octave output. I think it's a sine wave that it'll add to that. So we've got the rate that we can apply that vibrato, and then we've got the amount. So let's turn up the amount. And let's try the rate. It's cool. And actually, one of the cool things about this as well is you can actually put a delay on that. Not a delay as in like an echo, but you can delay it as to when you press one of these keypads, it will actually delay the amount of time before it starts implementing that. And there's other things actually you can do with this vibrato. So let's say, for example, you don't want to use that vibrato delay. You can actually use the pressure of each of these pads as well. So let's turn that on. And you can calibrate that, by the way. So when you boot this up, you can actually go into a calibration mode and you can actually calibrate not only the volt per octave outputs, but also this pressure amount here, also the maximum and minimum of the pressure thresholds and things like that. So you can get it tailored to what feels right for you as a performer. And I think that's a really important thing that they've added in there. Let's change the sound a bit. Something a bit more subby. And what we'll do here, we've got this pressure control. And this is the pressure control output that I mentioned earlier. In this case, I'm going to use it to modulate the filter here on my Atlantis. So turn off the envelope, turn up the modulation input, which is this. Now, the harder I press that, the more it'll open up that filter. Really cool. I love that. I love the ability to do that. And of course we could use that, you know, on all other things. You could maybe use it on the amount of resonance you add to particular notes, or you might use it on another oscillator in some different ways. So there's lots of opportunities to use this in actually quite creative ways. And in fact, there's more that you can do with this pressure. Instead of it just kicking out like a continuous control like that, we can actually go in and we can change the mode of that to different things. So we can actually get it to kick out an envelope by pressing, so an ASR or an AD, attack decay, a looping envelope, or actually random. that's opening and closing my filter now randomly. Depending on the pressure that I apply. Really nice. Envelope looping. Hey, so that's going really fast at the minute. So we can modify the fall time and the rise time. So like the attack and the decay of that. So let's make the fall longer. So you might want to use that. Things like that. And let's go back and let's put on the portamento. And yeah, why not? Let's put the vibrato back on as well. And let's put the vibrato delay in. Yeah. Really nice, cool. So let's have a look at the other modes. Let's have a look at the arpeggiation, and this is where it gets really, really cool. So let's go over and we'll leave this in single mode. So it's going to be one full keyboard that we're using. We're not splitting it in half at this point or anything like that. And let's go over to mode. Let's go into arpeggiator. Cool. So it starts playing automatically. It's listening to the clock input, so whatever speed that is. We can actually change the clock input here. That's at 1 times 1.33. I'm not sure why they've chosen that. It's quite an interesting rhythm there. But we can go twice, 1.5. And twice the speed. Cool. So we've got that going. Let's leave it like that. We can change the direction of the arpeggio that it's played. So it's going forward at the minute. Backwards. And even ping pong. And even random. Cool. I'm going to leave it on forwards for now. Right, now the thing about arpeggiation, in my opinion, it's quite easy for them. I'll just take the kick out for now. It's quite easy with arpeggiators, I think. I mean, they're cool, they're really good fun to play with, but they can come, you know, they can become a little bit boring over time. This offers you the ability to kind of play with these arpeggiators in some really interesting ways. First of all, you can introduce what they call variations. So variation 1, what it does, it gives you this progression of the arpeggiation. Variation 2. So you can hear it's running over more notes. And then we can determine that variation, instead of running over 12 semitones, 12 notes, we can actually define that and go, well, I just want it to run over 5. See what it's done there? And playing around with this is where you can get some really interesting results. So you can make it really short, like just 3. really interesting. Not only that, we can play around with the rhythm of that. Now this rhythm, the way that you have to think about it, it sits between the clock input and the arpeggiator. So clock's there, arpeggiator's there, and this rhythm sits between it and decides that clock going into the arpeggiator, it takes out some kind of pulses. So we can determine that here, we can take out some of those pulses. So I've just taken 2 out there. Now it's an 8-bar, an 8-note arpeggiation, playing a variation of 3. And then we've got a rhythm here where we've taken out some of those notes. And now we've got this kind of always moving and shifting arpeggiation. Now this rhythm is 8 long. We can make that shorter, or so we could go, say, to 3. I like to use like odd numbers with each other. Let's turn them all on. So you can really kind of perform with this. You can really kind of jam with this a bit. You know, if you was playing live with this, I suppose, you could play around with how much this rhythm is on. You could play around with the number of notes in that interval. Let's make that rhythm, instead of 3 notes, let's make it 6. And let's turn on a few more. I mean, you can get just like really interesting results. Really nice. Now coming out of there again, we can access whether it's kicking out that trigger or gate, and as I mentioned before, the portamento, the vibrato, and so on. So we can get access to all of that. We change the direction of what it's playing now and go ping pong, we're going to get even more variations. Cool. All right, let's have a look at the sequencer. Okay, so let's put that into sequencer mode. Hurrah, and we'll leave it in single mode. So we're still not splitting this up. This is one continuous thing. If we hit play here on our clock, it's listening to that clock coming in. And what this does in sequencer mode, these become transposition. So let's have a look what we can do in sequencer mode. First of all, we can change if it's running or if it's controlled by the keyboard. So it'll only play if you play the keyboard. I'll leave it in free running mode for the sake of this demonstration. We've got the length of the actual sequence. Let's just make that 5 for now. Again, I like using odd numbers. The clock we can divide, I'll leave it on ×2, why not? Again, we can change the direction, forward, backwards, ping pong, and random. I'll leave it on forward, just so I can demonstrate this. And then this is where we can choose what notes it's playing. So we've got all these values here and the gate below them. So let's go to the first value. I'll leave that where it is actually. I'll go to second value. And I'll go to the fourth one. Oh. Fifth one. Really cool. So there we go. If we want to change off whenever any of those notes play, we can actually turn the gate off for those as well, and that's what those little the little squares are below each one. So I'll leave it like that for now. Just take off a bit of that echo. Coming out of that, we've got this continuous or gated CV output. And this determines when it gets updated when user transposition. So gated essentially means that it'll only update when there is a gate, which means it'll keep things in time for you. So if you transpose in between where the gates are, it'll wait for the next gate and kind of quantize that for you and make you sound like you're in time, which is great. Now we've got the rhythm to play with, just in the same way as we do with the arpeggiation. We've got this rhythm to play with. So again, the rhythm sits between the clock and the sequencer and allows you to interact with that a little bit. Now you can see I've got, what's that, 2, 4, 6 steps, and I've got the 6th step off. So let's go in here and let's put them all on. And I'll turn that 3rd one off. And I'll maybe make the length of this 5. So it means that that one that's off is now going to be moving around in time. So you get this kind of broken rhythm and a melody that is constantly moving around, which we can transpose. Coming out of that, again, we've got the gate or trigger, depending on what you want. We've got the portamento to play with, which we've already got on, so it remembers the settings that we had from the arpeggiation in terms of the portamento and a little bit of vibrato. So we've got that in there as well. Just going to make that length 6, just because it might be a bit too, might have been a bit too wonky for you, that, but I kind of like it. So yeah, we can go in, we can play more with this rhythm. So again, you can perform with this sequencer. If you're playing live, just turning things on and off. And of course you can go into the actual sequence itself and let's make it longer. Let's go to 8 and let's actually go ping pong. And let's go in and put some more notes in here. Why not? And remember, those notes are quantized to the scale that we've loaded up in here. Although we can, remember, still change the value of each one of these if we wanted to. Meaning we can transpose however we want. What happens if we have 2 of these sequences running? What if we was to split this in 2, have a sequence coming from there, a sequence coming from there? Well, let's give that a go, shall we? Okay, so let's do that. Let's split this up into 2 halves. So we just go over and we go split. So this is now playing the original sequence. So sequence is coming out of here, playing Atlantis, just like we had before. But over on this side, open up the filter. I've got this oscillator being controlled by the volt per octave output here, and I've got this gate output here, opening and closing the envelope that's going through on that VCA. So now I've got a combination Really cool. So can play notes here, sequence here. I could, if I want, change this into an arpeggiator. So this is where this comes in handy. We choose which side we're editing now because they've got discrete parameters beneath them. And I'm going to choose, instead of keyboard, arpeggiator. So again, it's using the clock that's coming in. We can divide that, make it slow or faster. So let's do that. Clock times 2. Nice and psychedelic here. So that's coming out this side, arpeggiation. Sequence that side. For each side we can go in, we can play with all those parameters, like the direction of the arpeggiation. In fact, let's change the arpeggiation to be ping pong. And we can even add that variation to the arpeggiation, just like we was doing before. Let's put it back to variation 1. Really nice. I really feel like I'm able to interact with this in some really lovely musical ways. That really, no matter what I do, I'm going to get really musical results. Playing around with that variation, playing around with the intervals of that. That's this side. Playing around with the rhythm, the length, and so on and so forth. I want to change the octaves as well of each side. What we can do is step through them here. So we've got -1, 0, +1, +2, +3, -3. So that's how you step through them now. Whereas before they were kind of independent. So there you go. And we could, of course, we've got this arpeggiating that side. You know, we could treat ourselves. And as nice as, it's really nice. We could even have a sequencer on that side. So now we've got 2 independent sequences going on here. That's our original one coming from that side. I'm not touching that. I'm just working on this one going to that side. So let's go and put in some values for this one going to that oscillator. turn off some of those steps. And maybe make the length of the sequence on this side 6. So now we've got this interesting overlap. This one's at 6, I think this one's 7. I mean, it's just great. I mean, I've got a number of sequences here. I've used a lot of different sequences over the past. And one of the things I always like to do, once I've got a sequence going, I like to be able to interact with it and perform with it. And a traditional sequencer, a lot of sequencers are kind of set them up. Yes, you can feed them CV inputs and assign them to places. But this gives me that kind of human interaction with sequencing. Just by lengthening some of them, shortening some of them, taking out pulses, playing around with the rhythm, playing around with that variation, control, you know, the portamento. Let's put the portamento on this side. I'd feel very comfortable playing with this live in front of a group of people, sort of just jamming, coming up with ideas. So there we go. Don't get fooled by its simple faceplate. There is a lot under the hood here, as we have seen. And I think what we've just demonstrated. If you've got one of these, if you're using it in a particular way, tell us how you're doing it. Maybe I've missed a few features. And yeah, do leave any questions and comments down below. I'll try and answer them for you. Thank you very much for watching this. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to go back and watch that video of the Solar 42F that we did, which has this front and center of that wonderful Ambient Drones machine. I really love what Elta Music have been doing recently. Definitely want to keep an eye on. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now.